So, the new Dead by Daylight DLC came out, and I kind of want to talk about it. The graphics part of the DLC look absolutely incredible. The new graphics update, the new animations, and everything like that, perfection. Amazing. The Survivor, he's a hunk of meat. I mean, look at him. His perks are fantastic, his lore, kind of fun. It's an enjoyable new addition. The Killer, his model looks amazing, his lore is cool, his perks are fantastic, but then we get to his ability. I guess you could say it's the Blight of the Killer. Please stick around, I'm actually pretty happy that I made this. Now, don't get me wrong, the ability is interesting. The concept of a killer charging at you and bouncing off walls and such while chasing after you, it's a scary concept. But playing it is a bit different. Because the killers are in the first person kind of mode, you running around and bouncing off walls is kinda weird. So I was sitting there thinking, with the Blights kind of lore, or with the theme of injection or corruption and so on, what are some other abilities that he maybe could have had? So, starting off with the first one, is the killer having a rage or corruption style bar, and it would slowly drain over time. The killer would have 3 tiers, with the top tier, where the killer would start, having the Blight having increased movement speed, faster cooldown on hits, they break pallets or kick gens faster, they just have an increase in movement and bonuses and so on. Then, the second tier, after some time, the killer would have average speed with other killers of movement, kicking gens, hitting cooldown, so on. And then the tier 1 is slightly decreased speeds. Now, the way that the killer would counteract that is that they would constantly have to inject themselves with serum to keep the bar up. So whenever it gets low, they have to inject themselves, which they would slow down. They would inject, the animation would play where they would inject themselves, and the bar would increase. Imagine it kind of like a reverse Myers stalking tier system. And while Myers, he stalks survivors to build up his meter, what the Blight would do is there would be bushes around the map that the Blight would have to run up to and kind of gather supplies for to make his serum. And I like this idea because it has the killer constantly injecting themselves with this serum, kind of like they're addicted to it or they're relying on it for their aggression and so on. The second idea is a type of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, where the player has 2 stances, kind of like the Oni or what the Doctor used to be. And the first stance has the killer as a normal person. They look like a just normal survivor. They don't have a terror radius, they can't attack, they move at a slightly faster than survivor movement speed, but for the most part they just look like a normal person. Then, the player can inject themselves with serum and they turn into a monster. Now they have a terror radius, now they move faster and they can damage generators, they can attack survivors. They are now a monster. And then when the killer wants, they can inject themselves again and go back into the Dr. Jekyll type of person, where they no longer have the terror radius and look like a normal survivor. And this idea comes from the original teaser when they were showing the Blight, where it looked like a person was just injecting themselves and then becoming enraged. So almost like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And the third ability, because you always have to do these in 3s, is instead of the Blight injecting himself with the serum, he injects survivors with it. Kind of like how the Plague gets characters sick by throwing up on them, the Blight gets characters corrupted by hitting them with his injection. He would have a normal attack ability, but he would have a special kind of lunge ability where he would reach forward with a serum and hit a survivor with it. And what happens as the survivors become corrupted are that skill checks are more frequent and they are more difficult, as well as survivors leave scratch marks wherever they walk, not just when they sprint. And the way that the survivors would counteract the corruption is that there would be bushes around the map, kind of like with the first ability, but instead of the Blight interacting with the bushes, the survivors would be interacting with them. And a way that they could make this different from the pools of devotion and the pig traps are that survivors have to get 2 different flower types to combine, in a sense, to fight the corruption. This could balance well because I feel like the corruption in terms of this ability aren't as severe, because the pig traps kill you if you don't get them in time, and the pools of devotion, if you're fully corrupted, you can't heal yourself. The Blight isn't as severe, so requiring the survivors to get 2 different flowers seems like it would be a fair balance and be something different than what is already in the game. And so those are some ideas that I have of other possible abilities that the Blight could have had using the theme of injection and having this kind of drug that makes you aggressive and violent and so on like that, to keep it in line with the character. Because bouncing off walls is an interesting idea. Again, scary in concept, but because Dead by Daylight killers play in a first-person perspective, it just feels weird. It just feels a bit of a weird of a ability. Like, it's definitely going to take some time getting used to. If you like this idea, or if you have any others, let me know in the comments down below. I'd be happy to hear other design ideas for abilities and so on like that. And if you like this, stick around. Hit the subscribe button. I plan on putting out other videos that aren't only around Dead by Daylight, but just around design ideas with other games. And so yeah, see y'all in the next video.